Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the Mom Talk Sex podcast with me, Mor Yelvington, your host. I'm so excited you are here with me today for this beautiful conversation that I'm going to have with the beautiful Corinne. Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome. I know this conversation is going to be extra juicy. So grab your drink of choice and come hang out with us for the next 20 or so minutes where we're going to really dive in to the ins and outs of fun bedroom activity. So, Corinne, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know what it is that you do out in the world?
Okay, I'm Corinne Zuleger, and I am a transformation and healing strategist. And what I mean by that is, I really help people default to be the best version of themselves. We kind of come through life with information that we take in from all around us, especially in our early years of development. And those things shape us, and we don't necessarily recognize what those are. And so, I have certifications from John Maxwell team. I have a certification for working with the subconscious work. I have a certification of working with Joseph McClendon III, and I am a neuroencoder, is what our technical term is, and Dr. Daniel Amen brain health certification. So for my life coaching, I kind of make a special little recipe, if you will, for each individual. So whatever they need is what I will pull out for tools. Um, but really getting to the root of it is getting people back to self-love, self-worth, to owning, their wholeness, and their oneness in this world.
I love that so much. So, how did you get to do that? What brought you to this place? What was your
Oh,
journey?
oh, my journey. I would say the beginning of this whole journey in my exposure to mental wellness would be uh, after the third child, a scene, if you will, on the bathroom floor, right? Me, going into the shower, my husband's in the shower. I pull the curtain back. I'm sobbing. I don't really understand what's happening to my body. He says he can't help me. And then I like collapse onto a heap on the bathroom floor and start thinking about taking my life. And after doing the work and some investigating, it really came out that I was trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be, like to be that version of the mom and the woman that I felt that society wanted me to be. And that meant suppressing so many of my natural tendencies, and one of them being um, sensual and sexual urges, because, like, good women don't have those.
Of course not. What?
Yeah.
Women want to
Yeah.
have sex? What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
hmm Yeah, so I've been with my husband for 32 years. And that scene on the bathroom floor really got me to the point where I was like, you know what is really going on here? And digging and unearthing really, it started to show me like, I was trying to be a good girl for so long, and the natural me is more of a tomboy, right? I love to run and jump and climb and be outside, and I wasn't much of a, I'm going to use an air quotes here, a homemaker in the traditional sense, right? I mean, I believe in supporting the bakery and the deli.
Yeah.
I mean, and I did stay home. I had the opportunity to, be with our kids and to be with them after school, and I loved every minute with our kids. But that separation from myself and who I really authentically was, it just wreaked havoc in all areas of my life, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And that's what I help bring into my life coaching business, is that it affects all the areas, because you can't be stuck in one area of your life and not be stuck in all areas of your life.
So true. So true. So what can you share for those moms that are stuck? How do they know? Because what I realized, a lot of the women that I interview, we have this pivotal moment, and it's like one of those like crushed on the floor or wanting to take our life or just drowning. How do we get before, like, how do we find out we're in trouble before we get to this point? Like, I feel like as moms we don't really have that stop button if we don't make it a priority. So maybe you can share some tips on how can you know that it's the time.
I think as women, we tend to, right, we're nurturers, we're caregivers. And then what happens is we put everybody else's needs above ours. And we're kind of conditioned, right? We hear these things all the time. Like, oh, she's so selfless. And, it's like this whole martyr thing that, I mean, if you're not selfless, you're a selfish bitch. And then it's like, oh my God, right? Because nobody wants to be that, you know? And my advice is that, right, we can recognize when we're not feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
Like deep in inside of ourselves, there's this lack of fulfillment, this longing, like almost like a loneliness. And we don't want it to get to that point. We want to make sure that we make ourselves a priority. And even if it's like, because I know with littles, it can be incredibly difficult to carve out that time. But
Yeah.
there's, a number of things that need to come in there, and that is prioritizing self s- in self-care. And I mean, like, I'm not talking about going to the spa and things like that. I'm talking about just taking those moments to breathe, to remember who you are as an individual, right? I'm the wife, I'm the mom, but those are not who you are, right?
Right.
I am this body, right, is simply a house for my soul that came here to do its thing. But so inside of me is very much an individual. And how I express myself going to be different than the neighbor lady, than the girl down the road, whatever. It's all going to look different. So what do I need? And sometimes that's just 15 minutes of quiet where I can align myself with, what I see for the vision. Maybe it's a bath. Um, I think as couples too, like we kind of forget to date each other, right? The kids become the priority. And, I'm here to say that you need to make sure that your relationship is a priority because your kids are watching. They're going to see how you model that and, go out for the date. It doesn't have to be some really expensive, lavish dinner. It can be, I can remember going in the car and just literally driving up to the park so that my husband and I could just sit and look at each other and talk to each other,
Yeah.
right? Because you got to get that heart connection going. And so that, yeah, I think it's so important to first, self. And it doesn't have to be the very first thing in the morning, but I find that that works the best just because before anybody else gets up, I take care of me in align with me, journal, meditate, quiet, just get in and, focus on self. And then again, making sure that that relationship remains, a dating relationship. His needs are my needs. My needs are his needs. And then you can get caught in like a power struggle, I think, when you're in a relationship, right? When you're trying to raise kids and you have the mayhem of all the stuff that goes along with being parents, right? Middle of the night feedings and how can you still date each other? And that looks different for everybody. Making sure you're doing that though.
Yeah, that's so important. So what is your relationship looked before the transformation and what does it look like now?
Oh, I would say the biggest difference is I use my voice. I used to kind of stuff things down, and this is actually what kind of sparked the Secret Keepers podcast that I have. Was I would well, I didn't want to make waves, didn't want to be ungrateful, for what my husband was providing. I didn't want to, there's kind of this, there's some things out there where women should be submissive and, women should follow the leader of their husband. And, and I bought into a lot of that stuff. And what's different now is I speak up, right? It doesn't mean I'm not a butt about it. It's like I'm just saying, hey, I need this. And when I preface it like that, right? I need this, right? This is what I need. I need, and as women, right, we need that emotional connection, right? Um, and we need physical touch in a non-sexual way, right? We need you to rub my back, but doesn't need to end in something, right? It can if that's, but to create an emotional connection, create an intimate connection. So the difference really is speaking up, being able to use my voice and say what I need, what isn't working for me, what is working for me. And really, I mean, honestly, I feel like at this stage in the game, after all these years, it almost is like a reversal because it's like, they get a little older, the man, and testosterone levels start to drop. And then as women and our babies are out of the house and grown, and now we're like, oh, look at I have all this time, right?
Yeah.
And so there might be a little bit of a role switcheroo going on there too, which is pretty interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. How do you think some women handle that? Do they
Um,
see it as rejection?
it could be, right? It could be like, geez, he's not interested in me. But when you start to understand, right, our bodies change, their bodies change. Um, we do, like we've been through couples therapy. The reading of some different books to really understand the difference between intimacy and sex, right?
Mm,
Really having those understandings. And I think like one of the best things you can do for your relationship and because you start out and you're young and you're like naive to what it's all going to take to be one, to be married, two, to have a family. And then as time goes on, and you learn and you grow together, that would be the plan is to learn and grow together. You start to see things through a different lens. And now you're looking at it and you're going, this isn't really so much about me as it is about us. And so it's not so much about what I need as opposed, what do we need? What do we need to be a happy couple? What do we need to be fulfilled? And not being afraid of reading and exploring, right? And exploring each other. And again, like I said, like, because intimacy could be, giving each other a nice sensual massage, which
right.
that's free, right? All I gotta do is buy some massage oil, but taking that time to connect, skin to skin, heart to heart. Our heart is electromagnetic and that the vibration that I feel of love literally can radiate out and affect him and then the same, right? So we're looking to get them kind of in a beating rhythm. And I read this in a book and it's been very effective. We will put a hand on each other's hearts and connect that way. It's like I can feel his heartbeat, he can feel my heartbeat, and we hum, and it's like you can feel the rhythm of each other, and you start to sync up. And then it's like, oh, and it's a very interesting change in body chemistry that starts to happen when you're in sync. So I highly advise giving it a try, and it's and humming and that vibration and allowing it to move through you. It's pretty fun stuff.
I like that. I've never even heard of that. That is very cool. What does that come from?
It comes from, it's called The Huddle, and Amy Culler is the author. And she does an amazing job and I highly recommend reading this book because she tells you, I mean, she really explains to men, right? So it's called The Huddle because most men can understand sports analogies.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So she comes at it with that perspective of, like if you're a team player and this is what happens, and we are, right? You and your husband, you and your partner, you are a team. You are a team. Then you as a family unit, you're a team, right? So as the main team members, as the parents, you're looking at you need to be able to connect. And so she talks about, what intimacy looks like versus what sex looks like, how a lot of men learn about sex through things like porn and things that are not healthy images, because
Yeah,
that is not what it's not what it's all about. And it's certainly
that's
not what the majority of women are looking for. We are looking for that connection. We are looking for that deep level of um of intimacy. So this, I'm telling you, get the book. It's worth the book.
true. Okay, well, fabulous. Well, if our listeners wants to know more about you, where you are, how to reach you, where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me at CorinneZuleger.com. You can find me every week on either Spotify or Apple, or through the web, through iHeartRadio. The Secret Keephers, HERS podcast. That I bring on a lot of really awesome things as far as transformation and healing going. Um, you can find me on Instagram. It's Corinne_Zuleger. I do put out TikToks. Again, nothing crazy. It's always my name, Corinne Zuleger. You're going to find me out there. If you Google it, you'll find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming here and having this conversation with me. It was so great. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you and all the magic that you're doing in the world because I know every person that comes, interacts with you, changes. And that's the key, right? We're all here to grow together, to support each other, and to hopefully have amazing, connectable sex. So
Yeah.
I hope you have beautiful sex this week, amazing intimacy. Get that book, tune in, and I hope to see you again next week.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me. Bye.